Hey, beautiful people, welcome to Draw Too Much. I want to show you a technique that I tried out today on another sketch, and I thought it was a lot of fun. It wasn't perfect, but at the same time, what I created with it was different and unique. So this is a coloring technique. Maybe not so much for caricatures on the fly, but if you want to try something a little bit more realism, or you want to try just something different than what you're used to, this was a lot of fun. So I'm going to use my caricature, or just a character that I did of. It's not as quite caricature. It's not over exaggerated by too much. It was just an attempt to fight for likeness with Tom Hanks, and you can see my previous video where you can see me doing that fight while trying to critique one of my students who had drawn Tom as well. So let's go ahead here and mess around with this face here. What I'm going to do is just make a copy of it here. And the reason I'm making a copy is so I don't lose the original. And then I'm going to go ahead and just do a hue and saturation change to it to just change up the color of the lines a little bit. Let's see. And the color I'm looking for is like a dark brown for right now. And this is just to give a different texture to the lines, so that when I color it in, it will be a little bit more. All right, looking for red. There we go. Well, I guess I was already in red. So what I need to do is pull down on the luminosity a little bit. There we go. I'm just trying to make it so that when I put in some skin tones here on the face, it'll work well. Now, what you want to go ahead and do with what I've been testing is start off with just a generic skin tone. Whatever you feel is that generic skin tone. And of course you can edit that however you see fit. You can change it up and make your flow different, whatever. Now, what made this feel a little different and fun for me is that I put my opacity at about 50%. So what that means is you're going to be kind of drawing with a marker, but you want a hard tip pen. So when you draw once, you're going to see it's going to do a tone. When you draw again, it's going to do a tone and lay a tone over it. And if you do multiple tones, it'll get darker until it reaches that deepest opacity that it can get, that 100% opacity. So in saying that, what you want to do is just go into whatever you want to color and only color in the shadow areas with this. Okay, so here but color it in multiple strokes. All right, and what you want to leave over is wherever highlight's going to be. Something else kind of fun is make your brush quite a bit bigger as well as you're doing this. Anywhere where there's shadow, that's where you want to start putting in those colors. It really is a lot of fun. Something else you might want to do is you might want to take your line work and take it from normal and set it to multiply. That might affect the color underneath the line a little differently, which could look kind of cool as well. So wherever those shadows are, that's where you're going to start coloring in these tones. Okay? And you pick your poison wherever you want, but it's really, really fun and unusual if this is not your usual means of coloring things. And at the same time, you can see that you're building yourself a bit of a roadmap for color. And you'll see in time here as we keep going through this here, which just shouldn't take too incredibly long, it's just going to start filling things in, and it's going to start almost looking like maybe one of those vintage caricatures in a way, and maybe more Drucker-style, old-fashioned Mad Magazine-style caricatures or something with the colors, because you're doing everything at such a high pass. And basically what that means is you're leaving in a lot of white, you're leaving in a lot of highlight, so it leads in a lot of what I like to call alpha. White alpha. An alpha channel is a term that's used in the world of art and the world of photography and videography all the time, and it's just another way to kind of switch up the look a little and just try something different. And it was really fun to do. I did one of those resolution 2020 images. I've been teaching a lot of my students, and a couple of them have been doing the resolution 2020 caricature resolution, and it's really great to see them do it. And so I decided to try one too, and I drew Angelina Jolie with this technique in the coloring, and I'm going, okay, this is just a ton of fun. because you don't always have to be perfect at it. You know, you don't always have to do the perfect drawings. But what you want to think about here is just leave the areas that are going to definitely be in highlight, and everything else, just go ahead and color in with this, and then if it's not quite dark enough, then take it a shade darker by going over the line again with the same pen. So if I just hold down the pen here, I can color everything in one fell swoop, just like this. And then if I feel like it's just not saturated enough, then with a couple passes, I've saturated it up. It's a really, really easy system. So now when you get this first line work down, now you can start making some life decisions here. Like, for instance, maybe instead of this, maybe when we want to start to apply some red to the face and start to bring the face alive a little bit with that red. Let me go ahead really quickly here and just do a couple more little highlight kind of pass things. Just trying to think about where the sun's going to hit the most on this caricature. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in a new layer, and I'm going to go find myself just a little bit of pink. Okay, and this is going to start to put some blood in the face. All right, it's going to give it some life and feeling here. And you just go right over top, and you can put in wherever that red is going to sit. Okay, red's going to sit a lot on the chin. It's going to sit a lot in the ears. It's going to sit a lot in the nose and cheeks, of course. You know, little areas like that. So you can just start feeling that in and just add that into the shadows as well. And in the end, here's the point that I was going to get to. In the end, the goal that you might find is maybe you like it, but maybe you just want to kind of blend it all in. So you go get the blender and you blend it all together, and you got yourself a beautifully gradiented picture, which is really, really fun to do. And I'll try to get to that point here as long as I don't take too long on this. So I'm going to put a little red around the eyes just for giggles, even though he doesn't have much red around his face. Yeah, you got to look at, you know, actually look at the person you're drawing to really get a better understanding of how much red is around their eyes and around their face. And if you found you did too much, you can just drop the opacity on this layer and calm it down until it feels about right. It's very cool. So now that we have that going on here, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. And now that you've drawn in these things, now you got a whole bunch of fun tones to work with. So with your eyedropper, and all I do is I push this button right here on my pen, but you can also push Alt on your keyboard. You get your eyedropper and just select the highlight of this. Now when you make another pass here, it'll be even lighter. And then as you make those darker passes, it will finally get to that point of what you just selected. Which means now you can come around here in a single pass and you can tighten up on this shape. And you can make that highlight even smaller. Until the point in time that you get so small that you just have a point of white there. And there you go. So there's the first pass. Here comes the second pass. So what you're doing is you're building kind of a step gradient. Okay? And it's just a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun. Maybe you're not quite feeling happy with the gradient that you've created. Just go grab a slightly darker tone, go back in, and do a couple passes again. This is a really fun technique, and it's a very loose technique. But at the same time, here's the thing I love about it. It reminds me of being painterly. It reminds me of how you would paint a actual portrait. Because you are mixing colors, you're grabbing tones, you're grabbing all of these things, and you're thinking about things in shapes and tones much more than if you just filled this in with a solid, or if you're doing maybe more with an airbrush. It's so quick to go over things with an airbrush, so much so you begin to forget about the fun of using the colors and mixing them in certain ways. This is just so much different than what your normal flow is probably already, and just a great way to try something different. And I'm just going in here and I'm just eyedropping different parts of this piece here, and everywhere that I eyedrop, the darkest tone is only until I've made several passes. So I'm able to come through here and just have a ball, and like I can grab white here and I can put my white back in here like that. Same thing over here. We can grab these cheeks and we can darken them up by grabbing the darkest tone and then just only going a pass or two in comparison. Alright, kind of like that. Just start filling stuff in and enjoy yourself. This truly is fun for me. I'm also going to turn down my stabilization because that's not something you really need when you're coloring, and you can get a little bit more speed in this now doing it that way. I can grab some of this red pink hue here now, and I can even come in here and just start painting on the lips here. Come back and grab another tone. Let's do some of this, and you can just go right over top if you're not happy with something. It's blending and it's stepping at the same time, and it just is so much fun. And I didn't learn this from anyone. This is a technique I just tried today, just to try something different, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. There we go. So you get all these great tones in here, and the thing is, obviously, my pre-sketch kind of makes things look a little rough. You might want to have more finalized lines, but, I mean, look at what you've built without even trying. Just by having fun and filling in those areas. And look at what you get for very little work. It's very fun. It's a very playful thing to do. It's fun to play around. And then when you're happy with what you did here, let's say I'm happy with this, then merge your layer down onto the other one. So now it's all one layer. So I'm going to take one or two more passes at this, and then I'm going to show you what happens if you start trying to blend stuff together. Because it's also fun to do that too. And maybe what you want to do is maybe you want to use the technique that I've taught you guys for a long time now. And that's the idea of grabbing a deep red, like a magenta red, and set your layer here to multiply. And then come in here and start putting in those magenta red deep tones and do the exact same thing. Just get it enough so you can have a little bit of a clue about what you're choosing. And once you've done that, drop your opacity until it starts becoming a comfortable shadow. Kind of like that. And then start making your way around your face with this shadow in mind now. And what you'll end up doing is you can either leave it as a separate layer, or you can combine it and merge it with the other layers and then use that to blend. Now, here's the only fault of this technique. Is when you start blending, you lose all your hard shadows. And that's a pretty key thing. Hard shadows need to stay in your artwork. If you're not using hard shadows, you need to learn to use them. Because hard shadows are, I know that they're scary, but they are a very normal part of everyday life. They are as normal as you have 5 thumbs. Fooled you there. They're as normal as you having fingers. You know, they're as normal as everyday life. And it's something that you can't be afraid of. If you are, just force yourself into it and try it. And this is such a great way to throw yourself into that. Just go ahead and do this technique and learn how, as you're building up these shadows, what they're doing and how a single pass will add just a little shadow and several passes will make it darker. And just enjoy working on this and building this up over time. It's just so much fun. So much fun. The areas like the cheeks here are areas that I want to focus some attention on when I actually come back and do some blending here in a little while. And if it, like I said, if it's looking too dark, if it's looking too bold and too brash, just bring down that percentage a little bit more until it starts to feel comfortable again. Now remember, you're going to blend a lot of this anyway. Let's go ahead and do something about this hair here. Now, this is not a finalized technique. I don't know what I'm doing per se. This is just something I messed with, and I had a very interesting result. I shared it with my patrons on our Discord. And they got a pretty good kick out of the one that I did of Angelina. And it's a release. It takes what is a usual caricature that you're used to doing, and it just makes it more interesting. It makes it more interesting because you've just stepped out of your comfort zone, but at the same time, it is just such a fun, uncomfortable zone to be in. I mean, you can't really get this wrong. And if you think you're doing that, just grab another color and just go right over top and just kind of erase what you already had. So maybe these eyebrows are just a little too thick for me. So I'm just going to come in here with a skin tone and just groove out what I'm not liking. Why not? Maybe if you're thinking it's too much, drop your opacity on your brush some more. I think the thing that's catching me off guard is that I don't usually utilize the opacity on my brush. I usually utilize the opacity on my layers. But when I look at this, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me incredibly of how real watercolor looks and feels. And it is so nice to feel that in a digital format like this. It is so much fun. You can do this on your iPad. You can do this on any device that you have that you draw on. You can do this in any program that you use because you're not making a special brush. You're just taking a hard brush, completely hard brush that you would use for inking, making it large enough to use it for color, and then just dropping your opacity on the brush. That's literally what this brush is. It's that simple. And look at what you get to create. It's just so much fun. I strongly suggest you do this. Strongly suggest it, guys. And just try it for once. Just to giggle around with it and see if you like it. If you join our Patreon class, please share it with me in our Discord. If you are in our Patreon class, try it out. Share it in our Discord. I want to see what you guys come up with. Use it in one of our challenges that we do on Discord of drawing some of our other students. We do a challenge pretty much every day where we take pictures of ourselves and then each student is challenged to try and draw another student. And it's a ton of fun. Try this out. Try this technique. They're going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy it. Everyone's going to have, something unique. And it's just different than what we teach. It's different than what we do. And it's bringing almost an analog style to the digital format. And it just is so cool. I actually like this one so much more than I liked the one I did of Angelina. Now, I gotta admit, I know it looks a little overkill right now. You can calm a lot of this down just by dropping layers and just calming things down here. But once again, in the end, you can also start blending. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Let me see if I can get away with dropping my my actual inked lines just a little bit. If I drop my opacity on my inked lines, I just want to see if I can get away with that just slightly. Not entirely. Okay, I was just checking. And you can use this technique all over the place. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and merge it with the layer down below, and I'm going to merge that one with the layer down below. So everything's on the same layer. Now I'm going to go grab my blender, and I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to start blending things around a little bit. And just if you're someone who just gets so annoyed by trying to get your colors to match or get that blend between them or whatever, this is just going to make your day. It really will. It's just going to make your day. So only blend in areas where you can get away with dropping the hard shadows. And that's needs to be the rule of thumb here. If you're going to do this, it needs to be in areas of gradient, and the best way to know how to do that is in an area that's sharp, like here in laugh lines. Don't shade it, don't blend it. But an area like a cheek that has a very long riding port, you coming down a long riding bit of light or a long bit of shadow, here on the cheek is a great place to utilize that blend. Okay, so wherever the parts are, leave them alone. Wherever you can get away with these nice gradients here on the cheeks, that's going to be a bit better. But if you need to keep it sharp, if that cheek kind of just hits a hard shadow part, then leave it there and simply blend inside your part here. And I'm going to go ahead and do this here where I'll leave the bottom of it hard, but within the area here, I will blend all this in. And this is techniques that you can do in watercolor. This is such great practice for watercolor because we started with a light and we worked our way to the dark, right? And that's standard with watercolor. But you start with a dark color and you work in the light areas until they're dark enough for you to be happy, and then you come back and you just add layer on layer on layer until you get the final piece that you're looking for. Wherever those gradients are that you can get away with, knock them on in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do it here. I'm going to go ahead and blend some of these tones together over here. Some of this up here. And then I'm just going to do a couple quick passes right through the forehead here and just kind of get rid of some of these painterly lines. Technically, I kind of love leaving them in, but I mean, I can do painterly and just paint them out here real quick like this, just with a couple passes. Now, I'm going to show you one trick also that I haven't showed you, but I think it's going to make it even more fun. So let's zoom out here and take a final look at what we have here. Oh man, this looks amazing. It looks so watercolor. I mean, and I'm looking at my other screen there and I'm seeing it from far away and it looks so completely like watercolor. Now let me show you what you can do next to freak yourself out even more. Come here to your ink layer, okay? And this is a technique that I've done in the past, but watch this. And this is just all out fun. Here we go. So our ink layer, this is what we're on, and we're just going to start blending our ink layer. And this is where you got to start making some decisions. Where do you leave the inks in, and where do you blend them out and blend them in? What you're doing is you're blending your inks into your shadows. And if you do this very slowly and cautiously, what you're basically doing is you're almost starting to create a realism form. It's not perfect, but it's really amazing what you can do. It's kind of like erasing, but what you're doing is you're blending those colors. I love doing cross-hatching. You're blending those colors of the cross-hatching into the paint that you already have there. And truth be told, you could even merge the layers in with the other layers. Like there, I need to keep this tone really hard, so I'll make my blender a little smaller, but I'll still leave it in there by doing a couple passes like that. Same here, maybe. Alright, let's get rid of this. So the harder you push, the more it's going to blend out what you have there. And the more lines, the more cross-hatching that you do, the more it's going to blend in a deeper tone. I mean, look at that. Go ahead and get rid of that by blending it in with everything. Alright, definitely want to keep that in there. And keep this one here. Alright. Just blend it all in as much as you want. And in a second here, we'll zoom out and see what kind of effect it did. It won't be a perfect thing. It won't be a perfect system, but I think that it's just a different way to get to Rome. And in my opinion, it's pretty cool. I mean, look at what you just created there. Look at what you just created there. How amazing is that? And you can turn off your layer and you can see the before of everything that you just blended in to the after with your lines. And it just is, it's almost a Norman Rockwell kind of look. Which, if you're a fan of Norman Rockwell like I am, I mean, seriously. This is just sweet. It gives you a chance to take some pride in something so different than what you usually do. And for all you know, this could be your next technique that you're going to run with and turn yourself into a master artist in a way that no one else has tried. And That'll be the way that you take your stuff to a more realistic style. Why not? Who's stopping you? Not me. And so maybe you're going, hey, that looks great, but what if I need to add more back in? What if I want to recreate a shape? Well, go find an area where you can grab your original color and simply come back in here and re-crosshatch out what you want to rebuild. So let's say you want to rebuild this cheekbone area here, but you want to build out this cheek a little bit more. So put in that line, put in that area, and then where you need the shadows, apply some extra cross-hatching. Okay. And if you feel like you need a lot of shadow to get away with something, then put a whole bunch of crosshatch there. Okay. You're basically painting with a pencil. And literally I'm using my pencil tool to do this. Now I'll come back in here and I will blend only those areas together. And I'll try to make sure that I leave some there, because you could easily blend it all the way out. And you can make adjustments to some of your settings to help push this back or forward or whatever. But with a little patience, you can paint in and paint out your shapes. You can build new forms and new structures and just create what you think you're missing. And if you're not happy with the color, you can blend it out a little bit more until you feel better about it. And if you don't feel better about it, why use black? Why use any other color? Why not go ahead and do the exact same technique with white? Should we? Maybe we should. Let's try it out. So let's go grab some white here, and let's put a little bit more attention on the nose here real quick. So I'm going to cross-hatch some white right down the nose. By the way, this technique should look kind of familiar to you. I got a book right here called Drew Struzan. This guy is a master of art for a ton of movies that you would recognize. Let me grab the book here. Drew Struzan, you might recognize a couple of those pieces. I love this guy's work. And one of the things I love about his work especially is that he does use a lot of highlights. And he does them by penciling them in with like a white pencil. Over top airbrushing and things like that, and watercolor. He uses so many different mediums for his work. And that's what we're doing right now. So find areas of highlight that you want to push a bit more, and simply add in your white tone where you think it's needed. And I don't think mine needs too much. I'm just putting it in certain areas here just to make a point. Not that I need to make a point. I have a feeling you guys are as excited as I am right now. But once you get those white areas put in, then grab your blender and start blending them back in. And just don't blend them in all the way. Usually what I do is I start on the outside and I work my way in until I'm satisfied, and then I leave the rest alone. Make my brush here a bit smaller and only blend on the outsides and leave the inside alone, because that's your full plan for an absolute highlight. But look at what we just created. Look at what we just made. Look at what we just did. I mean, that is just so different and so unique from the different techniques that I've taught you guys over the years. And I gotta say, it is the funnest sketching form for color that I have ever accidentally bumped into. This is just an absolute joy. Take a look at this. I mean, that's some pretty good shading just on that shadow layer alone. And if you're not happy with some of the tones, just come right back in here and do that. And maybe you need to, instead of blending, maybe you need to pull some stuff around. So I think if you use the fingertip, you can pull with the fingertip. I think it's that. Yeah, see, you can pull some of these things around in your shapes and such. So if you need to pull colors around, it's just a little bit of pulling and tugging and blending back and forth to create some of those effects. So many great options. And blurs, maybe you need to blur a few things. I mean, just enjoy. Go right along that edge there and blur that out, whatever the case may be. So obviously I'm not a professional at this by any means, but there's very few things these days as a professional artist that truly get me excited about a new technique. So when I bump into one that just absolutely brings the kid out of me and takes away the professional that I'm always being, I need that. And it's really, really fun. That's going to do it for this video. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Please, by all means, consider checking out our upcoming class here on January 18th. Right now, we have 4 people attending the class. We have a guest coming in to check out the class. So we have 5 spots available to come and take part on our Discord. But you do need to join on Patreon. All you got to do is support one video at $10 per month, and you can come take part in the class, drop off your artwork for critique, and even take part in our whatever I call it, the shooting gallery, whatever it's called, where you can take a picture of yourself, put it up with other students, you draw them, they draw you, and everyone has a ton of fun. It's a great way to learn, and no one's judging each other. It's just an absolute ball. All right, that's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed it, and go try it, please. You'll love it. I guarantee it. It's just far too much fun. Far too much fun. God bless, guys. Bye.